Hey guys, Amy Minsung here. Today we're going to be taking a little look at the Nine of Wands. We're going to be learning a little bit more about the sign of Sagittarius, a little bit more about the element of fire, a little bit more about mutable energies, and how we're able to break all of this down through the last three cards of the suit of wands in the minor arcana. Let's jump in. I really hope you enjoy it. Sagittarius is all about the movement and the breaking through and the alchemy, so let's get some things done. The reason why the 8, the 9, and the 10 of Wands has a very strong relationship to the sign of Sagittarius is because if we're looking at the wheel of the year, each one of the 12 zodiac signs also corresponds directly to a major arcana card. And then that major arcana card is going to have 3 supportive cards in the minor arcana that are also related to that zodiac sign. So the major arcana card that corresponds to the sign of Sagittarius is the card of Temperance, which is going to have its own separate video. But the 3 supportive cards that go in order following the decans of Sagittarius is the 8 of Wands, the 9 of Wands, and the 10 of Wands. The 8 of Wands is Mercury in Sagittarius, the 9 of Wands is the Moon in Sagittarius, the 10 of Wands is Saturn in Sagittarius. So each one of these cards brings in a specific type of energy that is a paramount lesson in terms of Sagittarius, in terms of the element of fire, and in this case, mutable fire, which is the third and final expression of the element, which has everything to do with our ability to adapt and often alchemize everything that we've learned about that element and bring it into a certain level of mastery in terms of how we manage our energy in this human existence that we have. So Sagittarius is that third and final mutable fire sign. It is very much about change. It is very much about movement. It is very much about the ability to break throughout the process of the year. We are always being given an opportunity to go through each one of these signs and learn different levels of mastery by becoming aware of where we can refine our relationship to these energies. So I just wanted to make sure that before we dive in specifically to the 9 of Wands, that I'm clear about why I'm associating the 9 of Wands with Sagittarius. The reason why this video is about the 9 of Wands is because in this current time period, we are actually in that second decan of Sagittarius, right at the very end of it. So this time period is represented by the 9 of Wands. And it's so amazing that we can actually associate specific times of the year, specific months, and specific weeks within those months with specific tarot cards. And if you follow that, if that becomes how you educate yourself on the timeline, you'll be very surprised at how these energies will actually come to work with you. So it'll be interesting for you to see how the 9 of Wands has been coming up for you in this past week, how these energies are actually expressing themselves. And next week, we'll move on to the 10 of Wands. When we're looking at the last 3 cards in the suit of wands in the minor arcana, this is the element of fire, we are looking at this final phase of the journey of the ego, which starts in Aries. That is the who am I, how am I driven, what does my drive look like, do I have the confidence to make things happen? And I think that Sagittarius really asks us the most is, do you have the confidence, the passion, the creativity, and the courage to change, to create change? It's the sign of higher learning, which the difference between the higher learning and not higher learning is that, like, the education that you would get in school, which is very Gemini, the elementary school, That's the learning that's imposed on you, that's required of you in order to function in the world. Whereas higher learning is your chosen vocation. It's what you choose to go out and educate yourself in, so that you can then take that forth and, number one, learn and grow yourself, but then also contribute to the collective knowledge that is out there through that service of educating other people through your vocation. And so when we're looking at the Nine of Wands particularly, I have 3 different versions of the Nine of Wands, because I always like to bring in multiple tarot decks, because this is part of the evolution of the tarot, that each person who creates their own tarot deck is going to bring their own personal flavor of what they specifically have felt the emphasis on of this particular card. And I think that being a Gemini moon, this really does help to create different perspectives, right? Different perspectives on what we're looking at, to help us understand more of what Sagittarius is, and to help us understand more of what this card can represent when it comes up in a reading for you or with somebody else. So the first card that we're going to look at here, this is the Nine of Wands from the Crystal Visions Tarot. This is just the little booklet by Jennifer Glasso. And this is I have to say, this is a great tarot deck with a lot of really beautiful imagery, but not super deep, which is also fine, because sometimes you don't want to have a super deep reading. You just want something that's a little bit more surface level. But the imagery that she uses still really packs a punch. And the main theme that she's bringing forth in this particular version of the card is being on the defensive. Needing to take a stance of watching your back, seeing what's going on around you and being aware. So the Nine of Wands is the moon in Sagittarius. If we're looking at it through the tree of life and we're looking at the 3 decans of Sagittarius, this is the 2nd decan of Sagittarius, which is assigned to the moon in ancient astrology. So the way that we're seeing that show up is that anytime that the moon is involved, we're looking at internal subconscious instincts, what drives us, what we're protecting ourselves from. There can be an element of our fears, or the structure that we build subconsciously to protect us from what we're afraid of. And this is really relevant in this card, because as we move on to the evolution here, we see that our defensiveness, right, which causes us to need to watch our back and see what's going on around us when we're trying to move through something, right, which is always Sagittarius. There's always a lot of movement. This also a lot of times can result from being really tired, having a lot of fatigue, just feeling like, oh God, I'm doing this on myself. I've been going through a lot, and the only one here who's watching my back is me, right? And this is more of the energy that comes up in this version of the card. So again, we have this lunar energy that's saying, here's where I need to protect myself and why I need to protect myself, and this is kind of the effect that it's having on me. But remember, when we're looking at Sagittarius, this is always about how am I moving forward, how am I learning, how am I growing, and how am I breaking through, because alchemy, the transformation from one thing to another, is such a strong theme here, especially post Scorpio, which is the sign that comes before, that this element of the moon that's coming in usually comes up as, number one, the ability to look deeper into the self, to be able to identify where we're getting in our own way, where we're creating our own opposition. So this card here brings up the element of being really tired, doing it all yourself. And usually in the Nine of Wands, there's always this energy of like, you're almost there. Don't stop. Don't give up. Yes, we know you're tired, and we know you haven't had a lot of rest because you've been having to watch your back, but don't stop. Have the faith to keep pushing forward, pushing through. And so often this lunar energy is that obstacle that we need to push through. And a lot of that happens through self-understanding, right? Because if we understand our fears, then we are able to understand through that higher education of our own selves, right? Through educating ourselves about ourselves, how we push through. Because when we push through, is when we're able to come to a new place inside of ourselves, inside of a situation, inside of a relationship, where we're no longer being driven by the worst case scenario mindset, which that's kind of an energy that comes up a lot with this 9 of Wands energy, is where you've been through a lot, you've been through traumas, you've been wounded, you've had things fall apart, you've had to do it all yourself, and that can just kind of create this energy of like, I'm not doing this again, I'm not letting anybody come near me. And that's really what you're seeing here. In this is from the Druid Craft Tarot right here by let's see, I think Philip Cargam is the author of this one. It doesn't say it on there, but I'm pretty sure that that's who it is. In this one here, you have more of this energy that's saying like, don't stop your progress forward by telling yourself the story that like it's gone this way before, or it's gone this way every other time, so it's only ever going to be this way. And of course, as you can see him, it's like, look, I've been in the shit, I've been through it, it sucks, and I'm just not going to let anybody else get close to me again, or I'm not going to do the thing, you know, even if I want to do the thing. And so this card really does help us to understand it's so important to not become our own saboteur, to not get so far in our own way because of our fears of what's happened in the past that we're not able to actually change the story by pushing through it and creating a new one. So there we have that fire energy of Sagittarius pushing through that internal energy of the moon, saying you can transform your relationship to what intimidates you, even if it's yourself, especially if it's yourself, because usually all of these stories here, I'm exhausted, I gotta watch my back, has a lot more to do with how we meet challenges and how we deal with ourselves and our own internal opposition than it really does with the people who show up to challenge us. Oh, also, I forgot to bring in here that the nine of Wands here, or the 9 of Staves, this is from the Goddess Tarot by Chris Waldher. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure that I properly represented this one for you guys. So there you have it. This is just some fun information about the 9 of Wands to help you understand Sagittarius better, to help you understand the Tarot better, and I hope you enjoyed it. So just as a reminder to those of you who are interested in learning about astrology and the Tarot, you can always come to me for lessons, for classes. I do a lot of education around this stuff. It's my passion. And also I'm available to do private readings if you would like guidance, if you would like to learn as you're getting a tarot reading about how to be more connected to your intuitive senses as you're using this medium of tarot or astrology. I'm happy to be here and to help you with that. This particular week of December the 9th, that is today, I am 50% off on all of my readings. So please take advantage of that while you can, and I hope to see you soon.